Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the interview room. We're going to let a couple of minutes go by here to get everybody in, find out where you're coming from. Karen and I always feel that this stream, talking about missing, murdered Indigenous women, is a real priority for this country and Canada. We see you.
And welcome in, everybody, to our Sunday Night Live. So good to see everybody. If this is your first time here, welcome. We the only thing we ask is if you hit the subscribe button and give a click on the thumbs up and like this video. We hope you do. And it's great to see everybody. I see Kika J from Oregon, Laura Ryan from Kansas City. The names are going by fast. Sorry, I'm catching the places.
Indiana's in house.
Macon, Washington.
Kentucky.
Kingsport, Tennessee.
Chicago, Caroline. Thank you. Julia Martin's in the house. Martino's in the house. Rainy, California. Colorado, Oregon. Indiana, Brazil. Welcome, Brazil. Obrigado. Thank you for being here. It's raining in Southern California. It never rains in Southern California. Montreal, Texas.
Omaha.
Our friends in Canada. We love you guys up there. Thank you for being here. Orlando, Kansas City.
East Texas.
Nampa,
England.
Idaho. Detroit. We got Detroit in the house.
Oh, sweet.
Karen's from
That's where I'm from. Area. I'm from that area. Yep, born and raised.
London, UK. Thank you, everybody.
Alabama, Vegas, Las Vegas,
Lost
Ohio,
Wages, South Philly. How about our
Thank you
mods?
all for being here, everybody.
We have the greatest mods. Apache County. Thank you so much for being here. Apache County. Yes. Arizona, but moved to Wisconsin. Thank you. North Georgia mountains. We love that area as well. Karen, what?
And while you're doing that, let me just say a big thank you to our mods. These ladies are exceptional and amazing. They keep our chat just classy and a welcoming, warm place. So thank you so much, Miss Sophia, Maui Girl, Mimi J2, Teresa M, and Laura Walty. We're just grateful for our amazing mods. So thank you.
Yes. And Navajo County, thank you for being here as well. Dane. Right. And Yatahe, right? The people are coming in from not only the Navajo Nation, but Apache nations as well and tribes. Thank you. Karen and I cannot thank you enough for being here this evening. We have prepared a somewhat sobering program for you this evening because Karen and I have been committed to the missing and murdered Indigenous women situation for quite some time now. And the reason behind that is I had the opportunity and was blessed to have been selected by, it was a presidential appointment to train the first ever Native American homicide task force. And this was done through the Cold Case Foundation with Greg Cooper, Dean Jackson, Dr. Larry Simons, myself, and others from the Cold Case Foundation to go around the United States and train not only tribal police, we had FBI, we had everybody in there, and you can see the one picture on the left is the Bureau of Indian Affairs Academy, and I believe that was when we were up in South Dakota. And it was the first time that money had ever been put into this idea of training Native American investigators to work their own cases on tribal lands. And so I happen to be sitting in front of you tonight as the homicide investigator that taught those classes for these individuals. And there are hundreds of them that were trained. In this picture right here, that's the knucklehead up in the very back that you'll recognize. This was the very first group from all around the United States. They were from various tribes, from Sioux to Navajo to Apache, and the list just goes on. The Chickasaw, I mean, they all got together for the first time in the U.S. And, you know, the four of us up there standing up in the back, it's been such an honor and such a privilege to work with these individuals and the tribes. It's so humbling. So my heart is, you know, as the guys and gals in these groups, you know, they laughed at me because, you know, because I was like one of the only white guys around all of these Native Americans, and it's been just such an amazing experience to work with them. Okay, that said, well, one of the reasons Karen and I have traveled the country and going to the different areas, and currently we are in the Arizona area, and we just happen to be in, you know, the Phoenix area and in the White Mountain area when Emily Pike case went down. And we're going to talk about that towards the end of the program tonight. But our focus tonight is going to be about Tia. And her case is still open, that we want to make sure that the right information is presented this evening about her case. And so Karen and I, actually last Tuesday, honey?
Yep.
We went to the Whiteriver Apache lands on the res out there. And we went and we met with some family members, and we talked to some folks, and they showed us where Tia, her remains were recovered.
So, Chris, let's just bring everybody up to speed, because a lot of people in different parts of the country and outside of the United States haven't heard of this case and are
Okay.
not familiar with it.
Okay.
So I think it's helpful to just go over those facts real quick. So her name,
real fast, hon. Yeah, I don't
yeah,
mean to interrupt. I apologize. Forgive me. But real fast, the big picture, right, for everybody, there are literally there are thousands of missing and murdered indigenous people. In the United States, there was an estimate of about 4 to 7,000, and then when you add Canada, Alaska, et cetera, you go up into those indigenous lands. There are another probably 6 or 7,000, if not more. So we're talking 14,000 people.
Now that's over a 10, at least a 10-year long period, 10 to 15 years, maybe something like that.
Yeah.
But yes, this problem is so huge and so heartbreaking because these cases are never solved. And that's not an overstatement, unfortunately. They're rarely solved, and there's just so many of them. And it's like at critical mass, and the US government recognizes it, which is one of the reasons that the funding has been provided. That's the training Chris had just mentioned. Such a huge problem. And this year in 2025, back in February, when we heard about Emily Pike's case, that Emily kind of became the face of this huge ongoing problem. And Emily, so real quick on Emily's case, and then we're going to get into Tia's case. But so Emily Pike was a 14-year-old Indigenous girl. She was staying at in Mesa, Arizona, at what's blanking out on the home.
A group
home. Yeah, a group home. She had run away in the past, but anyway, she was staying at this group home. She literally walked out the door around 7 o'clock in the evening back in January and disappeared. And the group home reported her missing. The family was, frantic. They lived on the Indian reservation about 100 miles away. Anyway, Emily Pike's remains were found on February 14th, Valentine's Day. She had been dismembered and put in contractor bags, and these bags were found off the side of Highway 60 in northern Arizona. Horrible, heartbreaking case. Well, Emily's family managed with a groundswell of media attention and community attention. They got to sit down with the FBI director back in the spring. And so that never happens on these cases. So there is hope that with authorities and the highest authorities, the FBI was working in conjunction with Gila County Sheriff's Office on Emily's case. They still are. Tribal police do play a role in that as well. Her case is still unsolved, but it got a huge amount of attention, thank goodness. And it really underscores and highlights this problem of missing and murdered Indigenous women. And so when we all heard about Challistia, her name is Challistia Colelay. They call her Tia. So when we heard about this 16-year-old White Mountain Apache girl who disappeared in October, and then we hear that her body was found November 3rd, just like literally a half mile from her home, it's like, here we go again. And so I think that it feels like the community in Arizona and the media is picking up Tia's case in Arizona. Hopefully it gets much more widespread coverage. And now this one is different than Emily's case, and we're going to talk about that. But that is what we're talking tonight. We want to bring awareness to Tia's case. We also want to bring awareness to Emily's case. Emily's case is still unsolved. But, this is such another heartbreaking case, another teenage girl who goes missing and then, winds up killed and their body is found. And it's just heartbreaking. And anyway, Chris, jump in with your thoughts.
Yeah, the problem is so vast, right? Because if we look at some of the dynamics when, the government got involved a long time ago, all of these cases used to be investigated by the FBI. And then, when Operation Lady Justice was put together, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, they decided, hey, you know what, we need to start doing more on our tribal lands. And, these are sovereign nations. I mean, Navajo Nation and Apache, these are sovereign lands for Native American people. And so at the tribal level, they started taking more power back. They took their taking power back, for lack of a better term. But the problem is on some of the reservations, there is almost like this tiered system of how information flows and how communication gets out to those members of the tribes as a whole. So the plan was, and the president, it started back, I believe President Obama started it when he was in the White House. And then from there, it went to President Trump, and then it went to President Biden. But the money was, you saw it starting to slip away. Okay. And so Operation Lady Justice was disbanded. Okay. And when it was disbanded, then, fortunately, we had, as a training group, the Cold Case Foundation, we had already, been on the tip of the spear, and we had, probably 100 to 200 investigators already trained. And so the good news is, most recently, the money has been brought back, and it's being funneled at a tribal level now through the BIA, and which is really good, because now they're calling the FBI to come assist, not necessarily be the tip of the spears. And why is that important? Because the members of the tribes know more than anybody about their own neighborhood, their own reservation, their own area. And so there's a lot of great things happening. And Karen and I, we just talked to Emily's family just this week. And, there are things moving with that particular case. We'll let you know. Okay. Nobody's in custody. But then this, like Karen said, then Tia her body is found. And we also discovered there was another young lady in 2023 that was 18 that was found near her, but there's not been a resolution to that particular case. We don't know the total circumstances on that one yet. We just heard about it on Tuesday. So what we wanted to do was continue to keep awareness of this problem. And it's not just this area. I was in Oklahoma, about a month ago, Karen? I mean, in Chickasha up there, we trained another tribe up there. And so it's still a huge problem, So tonight with Tia, right, we want to talk about what the differences are in relationship to Emily's case, and just measure it against Tia's case. I'm going to call her Tia because that's what her sister had told us. That's her nickname out of her first name. They just call her TIA at the end there. And we want to encourage anybody, if you have any information about her case, to please call that tip line, 1-833-560-2065. And you can remain anonymous, but it's important that you pick up that phone and call. And because what happens on the res is a lot of these girls go missing, and there's almost this silence that takes place. It's almost a silence. And that's what the perpetrator is hoping for. And so tonight we're going to break that silence again on her case. So I didn't mean to interrupt, but Karen, pick it up where you were, and I apologize for.
No, you're fine. Let's put a picture or two up of Tia, and then I'm going to walk everybody through the case from what we know. Do you have the other pictures, Chris? The ones from Facebook as a breakout photo?
I do, but I don't have them ready. I'm sorry.
Okay. We can see her right there. So, okay, so let's talk about Tia and Tia's case. And I know some people are asking in chat, did she live on the reservation? Yes, she did. So Tia Colelay was 16 years old. She was the youngest of, we're told, 12 siblings. And the tribe that she belongs to is the White Mountain Apache. She lived on the Indian reservation with her family in her family's home. That area is called Whiteriver. Okay. So on October 16th, just literally a month ago, it's the 16th today. So literally a month ago today, Tia's family said that she was last seen going to a friend's house. She did arrive at the friend's house. She made it there. She did not return home from the friend's house. Now, it's unclear when the missing persons report was filed. So we were told by the Bureau of Indian Affairs that her family reported her missing October 27th. So the obvious question is, why was there an 11-day delay in reporting her missing? We just don't know that yet. We're hoping that the authorities fill in that information for us. Okay, so when she was reported missing, it did not trigger what's called a turquoise alert. That is a special missing persons alert for missing Indigenous people.
Post Emily Pike's death.
That's right. Emily's family fought to have this turquoise alert system put in place so that there isn't a lag between the time somebody is reported missing and when police start their search. So in Tia's case, we don't know why, but there was not a turquoise alert. So that was October 27th. And by the way, the investigating agencies, because she lives on a reservation, it's the tribal police that are investigating. Although we're told the FBI is, and of course, Bureau of Indian Affairs, BIA, is investigating as well. The White Mountain Apache Police are investigating. It's the White Mountain Apache Tribal Police and the BIA Fort Apache Agency. Okay, so about a week later, just on November 3rd, Tia's body was found in an area that we're going to show you in just a few minutes. Chris and I went out there and filmed the whole area so you guys could see where the crime scene was. They found her November 3rd. They were able to make a positive identification November 5th, just 2 days later. So she was found literally about a half mile from her family's home, which Chris is going to talk about of why that is so key, such a key piece of information. So when they found her body on November 3rd, she was found, here's what the clothing they found. Now, they didn't say if the clothes and these items were next to her or on her body. We don't know that. But she was found with Converse high top shoes, gym shoes, size 8.5, black and white plaid pants, a tan colored shirt. And she was described as tall, thin, with long brown hair. So on November 5th, after they positively identified the remains as Tia's, The tribal police posted on social media that the BIA, Fort Apache Agency, and the White Mountain Apache Tribal Police were investigating the case as a homicide. So, another bit of information that they did release was Tia had 2 other missing persons cases from the previous year, from October 2024. Now, we don't know anything about that, but if it's a missing persons case, presumably she had run away. Can't confirm that right now. Both of those cases ended up being closed, according to the Arizona Department of Public Safety. So last weekend, federal agents were out at the crime scene where Tia's body was found with the White Mountain Apache Police. And this area you're going to see is near, it's kind of a rugged area. It's near a water tower, and there's hiking trails in that area. So we were told that federal agents were out there last weekend. And the latest news we have from the BIA, Bureau of Indian Affairs, says that the investigation is active and ongoing and that no arrests have been made.
And they also reiterate that it appears both of these cases, Emily and Tia, are not consistent with each other, meaning there are 2 different sets of circumstances. And this is important to understand when we go over this tonight. With what we're gonna do is talk about the video that we put up yesterday. Only there's not going to be any sound to it tonight, and we're going to talk about some of our observations and why we believe that, what are the consistencies, what are the inconsistencies to these 2 cases, and why it's important to know that from a criminal behavioral analysis, geographic profiling, situation. And so if we think about the area, there is a consistency with, one tribe, or where Emily's body was found, it was between the San Carlos and the White Mountain. And it was just a spot of land that somebody knew to take her into that area.
And it's important to point out that that is where Emily Pike was found, is state of Arizona highway and area. It's not tribal land. So Emily Pike was not found on the reservation, even though she did live on a nearby reservation.
Great
Which is
point.
different from Tia's case, because Tia lived on the reservation and her body was found on the reservation. And that's another reason why tribal police are investigating, the lead agency investigating Tia's case, and not the FBI or local Arizona county authorities.
Yeah, the feds are involved in this too, though. They will be, hun. But to your point, Tia's body is actually found on the reservation, and Emily's body is found between 2 reservations. Okay, so that's really important to understand, as Karen just mentioned. Okay, and so what we're going to do is we're going to take you on a drive up to Fort Apache and on the White Mountain reservation up there, Apache reservations. And now this area is absolutely some of the most beautiful scenery in the country. There's
Why don't we play it and talk to it? Because we're going to have time to talk while it plays.
Okay, sound like a
Just
plan.
as a thought.
All right, I'll put it up right now, everybody, and we'll play it. As we're pulling into the reservation, this is going to be the first piece that you're going to see. Okay, now this area as a whole, the White Mountains, there are more pine trees than anywhere in the United States in this particular area. that was a hospital. It was the Indian hospital that you saw on the right there. And we're coming up to her house off of this main drive.
And this is Highway 73, which is an Arizona highway, like state of Arizona highway.
Yes. So describe what,
What we're seeing?
yeah.
Okay, you can let it run. You can let the video run a bit, I
Yeah.
think.
I wanted to pull it off because we're coming up just to where her house is. So we make sure I stop it.
Okay. Do you want me to wait until we pass her house?
It's going to be right here.
Okay.
Right here. Okay. So everybody on the right-hand side, if you're looking at the screen, you can even see there is a, looks like BIA truck there. That is where Tia lives. So look how close this is to the main drive that's cutting through the middle of the reservation. First observation. Go ahead, Karen.
Well, as you said, it's a beautiful area. It's rugged. It's got mountains and there's pine forest in there. It's got high peaks, this whole area in and of itself, desert valleys, lots of wildlife. You can't really tell until we get off the road here, but there's hunting and fishing in this area, and there's trails. And where we're taking you to the area where Tia's body was found, there's a number of trails that lead off of that area, even though it's very close to where homes are as well. But it does have, the brush, and it's got that rugged, kind of that rugged feel to the terrain.
So you'll see that we were about probably a half mile, maybe 3/4 of a mile at most. And there's this road that turns off. Okay. And then you'll see MMIW sign up here. And then behind that is a fire station, paramedics for that area of the reservation. But one of the things we want you to know is that there is a parallel service road that runs with the main highway that we were just on, and it goes right down to Tia's house. So what was the first thing that struck you, Karen, when you saw this particular area?
It's not like rural middle of nowhere because there's buildings, there's structures, and there's homes like in the area. It's nothing like, hate to make the comparison, but it's nothing like the area where Emily Pike, where her body was found, which was off the highway in a remote area off of a fire road. And so I was a little surprised how there were, as I said, there's structures, buildings, people not too far from where her body was found.
Yeah. And so this is important to understand, right, for all of us, because what we want to do is measure this against the victim risk continuum. Okay. So you have environment, situation, circumstance on the left, remember, and then you have low, medium, high on the right. Okay. Well, the reservation, this part of the reservation could have some dynamics that would maybe change where we would put her. Okay. And also some of the dynamics that may be changed is the fact that she may have been staying at a friend and or left her family's house to stay with the friends. Now remember, they're living on a reservation where there's a tremendous amount of challenges: alcohol, narcotics, poverty, etc. Okay. Now I'm not saying that's her situation, but she's around it, and there's a lot of it, and you're going to see this. Okay. And this is one of the challenges with the MMIW situation. The cartels we've been learning, have been coming onto the reservations and trying to traffic women off of them for narcotic debts and that type of problem. Because if somebody is getting into the narcotics and the cartels want to be paid, they're taking the girls off of the reservations and they disappear. Okay. So in this situation, though, you're going to see where Emily's body was found, and it's about, like I said, between 0.5 and maybe 3/4 of a mile at the most from her house. So this is that's an indicator that it's a medium to high risk environment. But the fact that she's found close to her house is much different than Emily's case, where she is found, dismembered in contractor bags coming up the mountain about 80 miles up into the reservation area. Here she's about 0.5 miles from her home. Go ahead.
Let's roll the video while you're talking so people can see. If you don't, yeah, let's do it.
And you see the fire services on the left. And as we're coming in,
it might look rural, but again, it really isn't. I mean, now you start to see some structures, some homes, and then you'll see the turnoff of where she was found.
the reason we think it's important to show her environment is this is also gives us a mindset to how she thinks, right? A lot of these girls who grow up on the reservation get out into the mountains, they connect with the earth, the sky, Mother Earth, Father Sky, and it's a religious experience for them. We wanted to show you some of the housing. It's a beautiful area up here.
Chris,
Really,
how far would you say that water tower is from this area that we're driving by and showing them right now?
less than 0.2 of a mile.
Yeah.
You can see right in the middle of all of those other houses is this house. And so that tells us a lot about are there drugs taking place in not in all of these, just like any other neighborhood, for lack of a better term. If people grow up and they go to school together, etc., and then they start getting into drugs and alcohol, then things start falling apart. And this is an example of seeing that on the reservation.
Someone's asking if that fire and rescue building has cameras outside. That's a great question. I would say if they do, let's hope the authorities have that.
Okay, now that road that we just turned left to go down this, headed back to the main drag. The water tower is going to be at about the 1 o'clock position from this picture. So we're going to come back and go back up into where the water tower is, where she's found. So what we're doing here is just kind of giving you an overall. So now this area here, you can tell, is really run down. Okay. And her body is discovered behind this area up by the water tower. Now, what does that tell us? Okay. It tells us either one of two things. It tells us, one, the suspect knows this area and is extremely comfortable.
Can we save that for when we're on the water tower? Because I just think it helps people to visually see it while you're pointing that out, if that's okay.
Okay. Here's the firehouse. Okay, so now we're going to go back up. Okay, and now we're at the water tower. All right, so now to finish my thought process there, where up at the water tower here, this area, it goes up and it's a circle, it's a loop. So it comes off of that Knott's Landing Drive, okay, that we showed you, and you just turn left, you go up around, and it takes you up into this geographic region here. All right. So why is this important to understand the mindset of the suspect? If we put her at a medium to high risk, okay, then the suspect does not care about that risk. What the suspect is hoping is that nobody says anything, because this is such a high risk area for him. And my money's going to be on a male. It could be a younger male, because they take more risk. Okay. So if she met up with somebody, or there's that type of dynamic, which it sounds like she'd gone to visit somebody, then that dynamic would play into this type of environment. The graffiti that's up there, etc. Okay. We'll show you a little more of this area.
So when we were there and we spoke to a couple members of Tia's family, one of her aunts told us that this is the area where she walks all the time. There's trails, you can't really see it. There's trails going off, like, yeah, I guess you can see it. And this, when I heard that, we thought, well, this is a gathering area. There aren't any homes right here, obviously, but it's a popular area for people who live locally to walk the trails with their family members. In fact, her aunt said she used to, when she was raising her kids, she would take their kids and they would walk these trails. And so to have Tia's body found here it's a fairly open area, as you guys can see, and it definitely seems like a gathering area. To your point, Chris, it's they weren't trying to conceal it. They weren't trying to conceal her body if this is where she was left.
No, exactly. And that tells us that it potentially could have been something that wasn't necessarily planned. She might not necessarily have been stalked, unlike Emily. Emily left the group home. She was last seen near a convenience store, and now she's discovered dismembered 80 miles away. Okay. In Tia's case, she's leaves to go visit some friends. They acknowledge that she's with some friends, okay, but she's not found far from her house. So the question is she walking back on those trails towards her house, because it's 0.5 of a mile to make it to her house, or does the suspect pick her up and bring her back into this area and, take her life? So these are two separate, distinct differences in each of these cases. Okay. So let's keep that on the forefront here because this is probably what the investigation and investigators are thinking. Okay. So this is important to recognize. Thank you, True Girl. You're very kind.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And
Go ahead.
I saw there was a question about cameras. I don't want to give away anything by saying yay or nay to that particular question. So if you understand, I know you understand. Yeah,
That's a good point, Mimi, for sure.
yeah,
We don't know.
we do not know.
Yeah.
But if he did have a car, right? If the perpetrator did have a car, to your point, Mimi, this is a very easy area to pull into. Okay? You just drive right up into this. And I'm going to take you down this road as well as around the water tower on some of those trails. Is everybody getting the sense, though, that this environment is known to the suspect? Would everybody agree with that or disagree? I'm of the opinion the perpetrator knows this area extremely well. Extremely well. This is not a random, snatch and grab, high risk, etc.
Chris, talk a little bit about the difference in cases in general where you believe that the suspect was known to the victim versus not known, like a stranger, abduction, that kind of thing. Talk about some of those differences and how
Well,
you would investigate the case.
and thank you, Carla. Think about again. Let's think about the familiarity to where the body is found. This is always important. And those of you that have been with us, since we started this channel, hopefully we're all learning together about those differences. When we look at the victim risk continuum, like we talked about, we have to ask ourselves, first question on the left, what's the environment? Okay. Well, that's why Karen and I go to these crime scenes to show you what these environments are. Okay. This is a very rough environment. Now, is that a high, medium, or low risk environment? Well, it depends. If there are people, hanging out at the end of this trail tweaking or into drugs or alcohol and they're not in their right minds, that could put it at a very high risk situation for a 16-year-old girl walking around, going to a girlfriend's house up these trails or something like that, like Auntie's saying, so you got to keep that in mind. And then the situation is where was she going that day? Is she just going to her girlfriend's house or is she hanging out with boys? That puts her at that puts her a medium to high risk. Okay. And so you have to do what they call life pattern events to the boys or the friends that she's hanging out with. When was the last time she was seen? That's the circumstance. Okay. Environment, situation, circumstance. Who last saw her? Where did they last see her? At what time did they last see her? And then you can measure that against potentially the time of death or when they discovered her. And you can kind of reverse engineer that back in there versus somebody at a home in Mesa, Arizona, goes out through the back window and goes onto the streets at midnight to 4 o'clock in the morning. That is an extremely high risk event. So the lower the risk, the higher the probability is that she was targeted by somebody in her environment. Okay. And it's a situation that may be domestic or et cetera. And you want to stay in that lane. The higher the risk, there's a higher probability statistically that it's a stranger, i.e. a Ted Bundy, a nut job who's dismembering, you know, people, okay, young girls. Okay. Now, here's the unknown. Does that high risk offender also know this area? And that's one of the things that you have to flush out between Emily's case and Tia's case. Okay. Is he, saying, hey, I'll give you a ride. Where do you live? Okay. And that's why it's important to know, how far did she get? Did she get off the res? Because if you follow that road, the 73, it runs right into the 60, which we're going to show you here in a minute. Okay. To where on the 60 is the road that came up from the valley up to where Emily and her body was found. But at this point, this seems like it's a total separate situation. And if I was working with the investigators in terms of, saying, hey, focus on this first before you take a leap over into Emily's case, and let the two trains run simultaneous, but on two separate tracks. Did that answer?
I feel like with Emily's case, we had more facts from police. There's just so much we don't know about Tia's case right now, and it could be that it's a new case. She was just found November 3rd, and that maybe with time they will release more information. I'm hoping. I just feel like there's just so little that we have as the public, on Tia's case. Um, and I feel like with Emily's, we had more. We had a lot more.
Yeah, the two commonalities between the two girls is they came from extreme poverty. Okay. So that makes them vulnerable to predatorial behavior because they're going to take advantage of that. Okay. And this area, I have to be honest with you, when I saw a comment that says, man, that's creepy walking up in there. Well, these trails could, yeah. I mean, you can feel a vibe up in this area here that you could tell that this was a place where people would hang out. There's a lot of, trash. There's a lot of dope, things up there. And so you kind of get this idea that says, wow, you know, that stuff can also tell you about the offender. Okay. If you look in Emily's case, that offender got off of that road quickly and maneuvered up those fire roads and immediately dumped her body up those fire roads. So that was really known to that offender, which leans me more towards not somebody on the tribal side, but somebody from the valley. Okay, in construction or that kind of situation. Whereas something like this, you can say, wow, when was she last seen? And if her friends tell you, well, it was 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, well, then that kind of moves things towards, okay, well, who had an access point to her, for lack of a better term? Who was hanging around here with her? A young kid, a friend, etc. A boyfriend? Is there anybody like that in the circle? That's what we want to know. So now I'm walking back, and these kind of cases, they just drive me crazy because these poor girls are the suspect when they take their lives and leaves them in these environments. They're projecting this idea that they're nothing but trash. And I mean, I had a case years ago where a woman was murdered and laid next to a dumpster. She was stripped naked, laid next to a dumpster, and the suspect put a paint can on the top of her head. Okay. And to depersonalize her. The the tragedy of this is these gentlemen who, I'm not even going to call them gentlemen, that don't beat me up in the chat and the comments for saying that. I'm just trying to describe a misogynist male, narcissistic murderer. Okay. They don't see their victim as having any value to the world. They depersonalize them. And when their bodies are found in these types of environments, or like Emily, dismembered, okay, there is a total depersonalization taking place. Okay. And when you see all the garbage and the stuff around this water tower, their graffiti and all the, the alcohol bottles, et cetera, that tells us a lot about the suspect as well. And it helps you identify what they call the suspect, profile. Try to fit somebody into that thought process. Okay. It's horrible. And this is why, the red dress and the red hand is these girls they go missing because nobody says anything and nobody sees anything, because there's this misogynistic type of trait that runs through these individuals. Okay. And the girls go ahead.
And the other thing too is that especially when these crimes occur on the reservation on tribal land, it's twice as hard for local media to press the authorities. And here's what I mean by that. So, yes, the outside media and really anybody on social media can contact the BIA and ask them for updates on the case and that kind of thing. It is a lot different if you cover your local police department or sheriff's office. It's a lot harder for police and sheriffs, throughout our country to stay quiet about cases they're investigating. Reporters back in the day, I was a print reporter. I worked for a newspaper. I would literally go into the police department 4 or 5 days a week in doing my job. Well, you can't just show up at the tribal police department, especially not being a member of the reservation, and start demanding answers. It doesn't happen. And, they don't have to, and most likely they don't answer those questions. Now, Bureau of Indian Affairs, yes, they have to be responsive. So that piece of it, I can see why so many of these cases go under the radar, that they're not even picked up by local media because they happen on the reservation. And that's part of what system we have in place. I don't know how you break through that.
That's a great point. It's incumbent upon the media to do exactly what you said, Hunt, was they have to press. You have to press. You go onto the reservation just like we did here, and you go to where these girls are being found, and you ask the questions. You ask the questions. The tribal leaders are amazing people. They want to help. They want to give answers, but they're, also remember, you're in their house. This is their land. And if this is somebody who's predatorial in their environment, they don't want that person there. They want them out. Okay? But they have a whole system separate from our court system on how to handle that and what to do. Now, that has pluses and minuses, because a lot of things are held, in the tribal courts on the reservations. And there's this idea of wanting to fix and help and, move somebody along. So that's just tradition, and you have to respect that. But everybody comes together when there is a young girl, a victim who's been murdered on the reservation. there's not a single person that I've ever met in tribal leadership, and I've met the Supreme Court, actually, the equivalent to the Supreme Court. And I've talked to all of them. It's one thing to have an alcohol drug abuse problem. You can work with that. You can fix that in the system. It's another thing to be killing tribal members. There's not a single one that I've ever met that says, yeah, that's a good thing, and we're not going to do anything. It's the complete opposite. They're looking for answers on how to make it better and how to help. And that's why it's critical that all of us, if we know somebody that may know something, to, kind of pick up the phone and say, look, you need to tell the authorities and they'll take care of it. Because for the longest time, there was this mistrust between tribal police, BIA, because everybody knows everybody. But when it gets to stuff like this, and these problems now I've taken on a national attention, right from the White House down to the tribal lands, you can really see the poverty in this particular picture here. That's
Yeah,
go ahead.
that kind of gave me a glimmer of hope on Emily's case, but not all. I mean, it's rare. These cases don't go all the way up to Washington, D.C. and the attention of the FBI director. And by the way, that meeting was over 6 months ago. Now, I know murder investigations are much slower than us in the public that we want it. We want answers fast. I did get a glimmer of hope in Emily's case that if the FBI director's nose is in it, you would hope things are being expedited behind the scenes and at least her case would be solved. Not, it's only been 6 months since her parents went to Washington, D.C., but February 14th is going to be a year since Emily was found. These cases do take a long time. What worries me is that Tia's case is it's like it's a string of them, and I hope we hear when her case is solved. I hope we hear when there is an arrest. And I mean, it's going to keep happening, unfortunately, because if these cases are allowed to go unsolved and people keep quiet and they don't help authorities, then why should we assume the problem's going to stop?
That's a great point. And this is why it's incumbent upon us, even like what Trace is saying here, it's the reason Karen and I do this is to do nothing more than to raise awareness about these victims and raise awareness about these challenges that are taking place to Native missing women. It has to have an awareness equal to if Suzanne Morphew disappears. Okay, there's no difference between Tia, Emily, Suzanne Morphew. None. They were all women that died through circumstances uncontrolled by themselves. And so it's important to recognize in this problem, like we talked about in the very beginning of our program here tonight, it's important to recognize how big this problem is and to continue to raise awareness. And Karen and I were so very proud of Emily's family to get an audience with the FBI director. And we just talked to, her uncle the other day, Allred, and he gave us an update about what's going on. And they came away extremely
encouraged.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And now we think about Emily's case, and maybe Tia's case now will even add more of a dynamic to look. we need to start really paying attention and putting resources into this. Okay. And I think there may be a shifting taking place with all of the different networks and organizations, put together by tribal members themselves that are saying, and women on the reservation saying, we're tired of this. We're sick of this. We're over. Okay. And we're going to do something. And so, you start seeing movements like this. Okay. Where it's been going on now for 4 or 5 years, these movements, but now it's going to pick up more and more momentum so that these women are not seen, not being seen. I don't know if that's proper English, but
It's not.
I know.
Well, to your point, this problem that Indigenous women they go missing, they disappear, and then they wind up dead. It's been going on for so long. The new movement within the community, their community, is we're not going to take it. We're going to get media. We're going to talk about it. We're going to use social media when these cases happen. And you're right, it could be pointing to a shift. If the perpetrators have thought for years they can get away with this, well, now that there's media scrutiny, public scrutiny, not just inside the reservation, but outside as well, maybe some of these guys will be getting caught.
Yeah. And that's the goal. This platform, others' platforms in the 21st century can change a dynamic of a problem. You put more light on it, and all of a sudden it gets brighter and brighter. Let's take you over towards her house here for a second. You're going to see how close it is. We're coming up to that gas station, or excuse me, the fire station again. We're going to take a left onto that service road we talked about. Now there's the main highway. Now you follow that highway to the right, it takes you to the 60. And the 60 in Globe and all that, that is the area. Now, if you turn left and would go back up, that would been so where Emily was found. So way over that mountain range. And you're going to see here in a minute how far away it is. It's about how many miles, Karen? Did you map it out?
It's like 60 to 70 miles away where Emily Pike was found. So maybe an hour's drive, something like that.
Yep. Yeah. So as we shed, as inapproachable light says, we put light into the darkness, then maybe more people will be looking around.
Right. Like people who in the past thought, well, they can get away with their crimes. It's a whole new era. And there's a lot more eyeballs and sunlight on them. And maybe that's going to be the thing to stop it or reduce it. So this is Tia's house. We went and we talked with a couple of her family members, a couple of her older sisters. I previously said that Tia was the youngest of 12 siblings. I know somebody in chat had a question about that. So we were told she's the youngest of 12, and I think they're evenly split, 6 girls, 6 boys. Do I have that right, Chris?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we talked to her sister, and there's a lot going on in this environment. We can all see it. Okay, she's 0.5 miles from her house here. Okay, that is a consideration. And then here across the street, the X to the right there was an 18-year-old found in 2023. So where Tia was found, to the right of where she was found directly across, there was a 18-year-old. However, in 2024, last year, there was also a 16-year-old girl found in the area where Tia was found.
That when you look at that, that just jumps out at you. I mean, there's no getting around it. Now, do we know if these are all connected? No, we don't know. It's too many teenage girls being found dead so close to each other on the reservation that they're from.
Yeah, the Tia and Madison, who we're going to dive into, uh, we don't know if Madison was, self-inflicted. We don't know the circumstances of that yet. So I'm not going to comment on that tonight. We just learned this, and Karen put this together quickly. But I am concerned the fact that they are potentially in the same area. Okay. And so now we measure that against the Emily Pike case, and we're going to see here in a second. Is it moving? There it is. Sorry about that. Okay, so here's Emily's. It is approximately 67.2 miles from where Tia is found and where Emily is found. And they're two separate reservations, only by a half mile.
Let's just be super clear. Emily Pike was not found on a reservation.
No.
Excuse me. It's state of Arizona land. It is in between. And by the way, Emily was from the San Carlos Apache Indian Reservation, which is south of the area where she was found. And so, yes, Chris is right that it is in between two areas, but Emily wasn't found on the reservation. And go ahead.
No, you're right. Because if you look where she is on that map, you see how it turns like a light color caramel there. Okay. That is the White Mountain Apache Reservation, the beginning of it. So be right in between that. Okay. You see how the Fort Apache Reservation down at the bottom where Tia, if you follow it all the way to the 60, and you can see the different discoloring, okay, and you turn left on that, on the right side is San Carlos, on the left side is Fort Apache, and where her body's found is just a spot in between both reservations. And that's why the sheriff's department and the FBI are investigating that with the BIA, whereas the tribal police are investigating Tia, because that's clearly on the reservation.
Right. And so for people who are just joining us, may not have heard the beginning part of our conversation. And Chris and I are going to be real clear. I think the main reason that we agree with authorities that these cases are not connected, even though where their bodies were found is fairly close, is because of the circumstances. Emily Pike had walked away from the group home down in Mesa, Arizona, and had to be picked up by a car, somebody in a car, crime of opportunity. Most likely she did not, of course, we don't know, but most likely she did not know her killer. Her remains were found 80 miles away from where she was picked up. In Challistia or Tia Colay's case, She disappeared from her home. She last was seen with somebody that she knew, went to a friend's house, and then her body was found a half mile from her home, leading investigators like Chris to say she most likely knew her perpetrator. She most likely knew her killer. So that's why we don't think these are connected by the same one person.
And so if you, and that's why I married this girl. Man, she's so smart. If you look where Emily in the lower left-hand corner where she was picked up in Mesa, and then you go up to where she's found, okay, that's midway before you hit Fort Apache. You see that up there in the upper right-hand corner? And look where Tia's body is found. And maybe this Madison, where Madison's body's found. So we may have 3 girls at least, maybe a 4th. We're not sure yet. But if we look at Emily and we look at what Karen was just saying, the circumstances, the fact that she was found down or picked up in the valley potentially to get back up onto the reservation. Now, if she made it up onto the reservation in any way, shape, or form, that would have been the San Carlos Reservation, okay, which is not even close to where this is at in terms of where her house is. And we took you guys there in her video. And if you want to go see that to bring yourself up to speed, go watch the stuff we did on today up to so far on Emily's case, because we're still, working that situation. We're still in contact with her family, and we're going to stay, in fluid here with TIA or with TIA, okay, to make sure that we're helping the authorities by putting the proper information out there. Right
And
now,
I think it's also important to note that Emily Pike lived about 50 miles. Her home was about 50 miles away from where her remains were found. Again, much different than Tia. Tia was literally found, it was down the street a half mile away. So it's a huge difference.
yeah,
And we know from where bodies are found, that part of the crime scene tells investigators a story about who the perpetrator is and what happened.
yeah, because you don't want the investigators to get tunnel vision. And if they're watching all of us and our ideas, they're very curious and very interested in your ideas in the chat. Okay. Trust me, a good investigator, and hopefully, you know, I'll be honest, as Karen knows, the lead investigator in Emily Pike's case came to one of my classes. Okay. And we met him recently. He had come over because we were talking about some things, and they listen to the public because I preach investigators don't really solve crimes. Either science solves it or eyewitnesses or people that come forward with information. And then they get to assemble the puzzle pieces. So as you have ideas, if you know somebody or know something and you just want to put it in the chat, you can do that too. Okay. Feel free at any time to add your 2 cents into the circumstances, because these girls, the truth is important to these girls. Okay. The truth is important. Emily and Tia look somewhat, they're both pretty little girls. I mean, look at her. What an absolute doll. And for those of you that don't know, even in her past, she had a tremendous amount of victimization
And trauma.
and trauma. I had somebody the other day put into the messaging that this girl's name is Aisha, okay, and that this was who she is. And the red hand stands for, no more silence about Native American women. We need to raise the bar. America
And I
needs to raise the bar. Go ahead.
and I think the message internally for their community is their community needs to speak and not stand silent anymore. I think there's definitely a double message. Yes, for the rest of us, but also internally in their community.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so it's important, if you have information, anybody who may have information about Tia's case, please pick up the phone, text. You can text the keyword BIA MMU. That's missing murdered unit. And the tip number is 84741. You can remain anonymous. You can
That
call,
information's in the description below as well of this video.
and you can call 1-833-560-2065. Let's get this case solved for Tia, for her
Yeah, we
family.
can do it. We could do it. Our community can do it.
Definitely. Most definitely. We have power in numbers. Power in numbers. These girls deserve your ability to get involved. Anybody on this list, look at this list.
Yeah,
And by,
show everybody the top of the website of what this is.
so this is the interior, because this was just recently, the Bureau of Indian Affairs was moved to the Department of Interior. So this is the missing and murdered indigenous cases. So look at these numbers. Look at the different states: Montana, Mississippi, all tribal members.
They're not all women either, obviously.
Oklahoma,
Yeah.
Oklahoma, 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 North Dakota, South Dakota. Give you an idea, please go to this website, BIA.gov, and you can type in and see, these individuals may be listed as missing, but, here's one from the San Carlos reservation. Okay, Hawk. Okay, let's raise the awareness on these people, on these individuals. Sweetwater, Arizona, Rosebud, South Dakota, Shiprock, New Mexico, Kyle, South Dakota, Montana. Look at this little one over here, Arden from Montana. How do you just disappear off of a reservation? How does that happen? It shouldn't be happening. And that's why it's important for all of us. If we see something, say something. And get involved with, organizations. There was recently an organization at CrimeCon where there was a presentation on missing, murdered indigenous women and people, meaning persons that are missing. Okay. Get involved. Get involved. This is a really important cause for all of us to see something, say something. Okay. And maybe we can make a difference. Maybe we can make a difference to where, we get the Emilys, we get the Tias of the world, and we're just doing our small part to see them. And any small piece of information can change a dynamic in an investigation pretty quickly. So I have a question. We have just under 1,000 people here. If everybody hits the thumb right now, that helps the algorithm kick this video forward. And that raises awareness for this situation with Tia. would you do that for us tonight and hit that thumbs up? Because the algorithm then catches it pretty quickly.
We're going to be staying on top of Tia's case, Challistia Colay's murder, as well as Emily Pike's murder as well. We will bring you guys updates when we get them, but we're not going away. We're going to continue to stay on it. We're going to continue to ask the authorities for updates, and we're going to bring you whatever information we get. These cases are important, and we're just grateful that you guys think so too. And even sharing this video out to help bring awareness to the missing and murdered Indigenous people will help as well.
Well said. Until the next one, everybody, we're going to have another program this week sometime. We are always grateful. Karen and I and Buddy up there, we put him in the corner up there. We're always
He's that way.
We're always grateful that you're here with us, and we appreciate and love you. Thank you so much for being with us. Aloha. Let's go to Hawaii.
Hard working every day, I'm stressed out 24/7, babe. No timeouts, wish we could fly away. You and I go to our favorite place. Oh yeah, make special memories together. I'll be your company now and forever. I say we fly away, you and me, go to our favorite place. Feeling the sun on my face in Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. I need a summer breeze, some fresh air to put my mind at ease. No cares. You wanna come with me? Me and you go to our favorite tree. Are you ready now? We jump on a plane now. We're taking away. Yeah, we're taking away. Don't hesitate now. We're taking away. Yeah, we're taking away. We'll never come down. We're going away. Yeah, we're going away. You and me. Feeling the sun on my face in a while.